Yes, first and foremost, really thank you so much, Dr. Girish, for this opportunity. And I think it's important to have a patient voice in this group where we're talking about doctors and we're talking about everybody else. Um, so just to take off from the previous panel discussion, I think our Ayurveda Charya mentioned about our ancient wisdom. Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, when we talk about our ancient wisdom, we always say that, we have to find God, you know. So we as a subject, and then there is an object that we have to find. The problem has become that we are all so deeply involved in objectifying the subject that the subject itself is forgotten sometimes. And I think it's important to keep the first-hand patient experience closely weaved in every single element of the process that we are in. And I think this is really important. And secondly, on a lighter note, all these guys come with a prize. Yeah, all of us are free. Okay? So, so, so I think it's important that everybody takes advantage of the patient experience absolutely free. So just to start the panel, I think it's important for all of us. We've known how important, this process of going through the cancer is. And very closely being impacted, I think all of us have been touched in far more deeper ways than just a treatment or, or the changes in relationship or the changes in what we go through, our entire physical process, mental process, and slowly coming back to living our life to normalcy. So it's important to understand this. I think, so the first question to Miss, to Poonam ji is, your journey has been inspiring with a cancer and a relapse. And yet, I think you come back very strongly from it. So what are some of the key lessons that you've learned from this?
Yes, Neerad, let me tell you that, I had my first stint with cancer in 2009. And when people would talk about a relapse, I would feel very smug and say, इनका पता नहीं कैसे वापस आ गया, मेरा तो नहीं आया. And sure enough, I went down with the second time in 2018. It came back after 9 years when I had been declared cancer-free. Anyways, I'm just telling you that there's, you should never take things for granted because you don't know what's coming your way. And many lessons learned, but a couple of them I would like to definitely tell you is that, one, keep your health as prime importance. And people might say that cancer is a silent killer. It is a silent killer, but no matter what, I'm sure all the esteemed doctors would agree with me that some signs and some symptoms your body will give you that things are not working well with you. It may be just a persistent cough or diarrhea, or somebody like me who had just a funny sensation in my right arm, which kept as if my arm had gone to sleep and my shoulder was feeling stiff. And my husband would make joke of me and say, thank God it's not your left shoulder, otherwise I thought you'd have a heart attack or something. So it was just that. It was actually the tumor that was, buzzing in my body. So health is of prime importance. Learning to recognize the signs of something being wrong with your body, very important. Two is that, adversity is a part of life. It can hit anyone at any point of time. Many of you sitting here would not know that apart from being a trustee with Yuvraj Singh, I also happen to be his Masi. He's my younger sister's son. So my two reasons of being very strongly associated with this foundation is, one, because he's my nephew and he's also had his journey with cancer. And two is my own journey, of course. So if cancer can come and hit somebody like Yuvi, who's in the prime of health, fit as a fiddle, ruling the world in 2011, man of the series, bringing the World Cup home, and if cancer can bring him down to his knees, I think adversity can happen to anyone at any time, and either you fight it or you run away from it. And Yuvi and me both decided to fight it with a strong determination. People hide facts and figures about cancer. He's a public figure. He, told everybody about it. I teach in a university, and I think each of my 4,000 students know about my journey with cancer because I use my example. And I think using your own example about adversity and talking about it, rather than telling them कि एक ज़माना था, एक राजा था, एक रानी थी types, doesn't work. But if you tell them about yourself and what you've been through, it really drives the message home. So this is my little bit on,
Wow, that's so touching. That's
Thank
amazing. So I think you just shared that you are Yuvraj Singh's Masi, and I think all of us would agree, or he's been our hero. Whenever he comes on to bat, I think just the sheer feeling of he will do good for us. After the diagnosis and during his treatment and also post that, I'm sure there are some very, very touching moments that you have encountered with this process. So would you be okay to share some of the very touching moments, both good, bad, ugly, and the very good ones, all of them?
I had just recovered from cancer in 2010. I mean, my treatment ended in 2010, and 2011 is the World Cup. And at least as family, we could see that the boy was struggling because we could see him losing his breath and he was sitting down. But nobody took it seriously. He's always had a bad throat and congestion, and also we thought shayad wohi aggravate ho gaya hoga. But when the news of his cancer came, I mean, it was unbelievable. And one day he called me up, and we've always had very brief conversations because he's been so busy with his life and all. And one day he called me and he said, Masi, मैं USA जा रहा हूँ, आप मुझे chemotherapy के बारे में बता सकते हो थोड़ा? I think that was the longest conversation. I was on the phone with him for half an hour, trying to tell him, trying to make him believe that, chemo's all right, you'll be fine, you'll be up and about. But deep down I knew that chemo is not kind to you. And believe me, I think he had one of the most intensive chemo sessions which would last 2 days. And he said कि अगर एक और chemo session होता तो मैं वहाँ से भाग जाता because I could not take it anymore. And I, used to message him, and when he would say I'm feeling very tired, I don't think I have cried more than once during my own treatment. But I cried every time this child would revert and tell me what he was going through. But he came back, and I mean, Yuvi is a star. Believe me, he's a star. Not because I'm his Masi, but he's a real star. You should have seen the thousands of people who welcomed him when he came back. And one incident I clearly remember is that in Pune we had the IPL match, but he was not playing. He had just come back after his treatment and his hair was all gone. Bilkul ganja tha wo. Before the match started, suddenly the camera went on him, because he had come to watch the match. I mean, the camera went on him and there was hell let loose. There were thousands of people. I mean, they forgot who was on the field, who was batting, who was bowling. It was only UV. The screen was showing him. Everybody was, chanting his name. It was something unbelievable. So, I think he was a fantastic cricketer, but he's also turned out to be a fantastic human being because he decided that he could get the best care, but there are millions of people who are suffering, and that's how Youwecan came into existence.
That is so amazing, and I think, it's just so brilliant in terms of the hope that it gives to so many people to again get back to life, to get back to normalcy. That it's amazing. And I think she just mentioned in the passing about chemotherapy. I think all of us know chemotherapy, that it's a treatment. It happens once in 15 days, or once in 21 days, or once in 28 days. I don't know how many of you know about bone marrow transplant per se. But bone marrow transplant is also called a stem cell transplant. And in stem cell transplant, in order to suppress the entire bone marrow system, before the stem cells are induced, a patient goes through about, you won't be able to guess, so I'll just share it, 12 to 18 cycles of chemo in 6 days. Okay? So that's the impact that it has on the bone marrow. You literally have to shut it down, infuse the stem cells, and then wait for the stem cells to grow. So the intensity of different treatments have to be understood by people before they only use the word cancer or a treatment in cancer. I think the understanding of the different diseases is very, very critical in this process of whatever we are going to do in the field of psycho-oncology or oncology. And I think this is going to be a very critical role to understand the patient experience of what he or she goes through during this process. Yeah? So just moving on to now, Dr. Kalpana ji, moving on to you. So you've been a doctor and you've been supporting patients for decades now. And I think, what are the typical first questions that the patient or a family asks of you?
Okay. I'm not a medical doctor. I've done PhD. And let me begin with myself. What first came into my head? I never thought it would be anything like this. So when the diagnosis was out, I had a busy life. I was to travel, my tickets were booked, and the first thought which came was, my life is finished. I'm going to die. Fortunately, now there is much more awareness and cancer doesn't seem so scary. And another thing which was shocking was, what is cancer? I knew nothing about cancer. It was nowhere in the family. I didn't have an inkling. And what do I do now? I was shit scared. Until the first thing that my husband told me, one sentence, one word. He said, you have the disease. It is for your doctor to manage the disease. It is for you to cooperate with your doctor. And that somehow put me at ease. I've come across so many other patients. Another friend of mine, she went at the age of 40 for a routine mammogram and no lump being felt, nothing. And there was something suspicious and it happened to be cancer, breast cancer. She says, I came back home and I just enclosed myself in the puja room and I cried. I cried and I cried and I cried for hours. Thinking of that, I am tearing up now because she's no more. But she says, after that, once I came out, not a tear more. I said to myself, I'm not going to cry anymore. So there are different kinds of reactions. Just the other day, there was a young girl who, young, maybe 30, 34, now we are seeing more and more younger women being diagnosed with cancer. And she's feeling a lump in her breast and she doesn't know what to do. I told her, you go to a doctor. She went to Dinanath. Her mother said that she's not called today, she's been called tomorrow. I said, it doesn't matter, a day is not going to matter. But then when the reports came and it was not malignant, it was fibrocystic, there was a huge wave of relief. So this is like a roller coaster ride and different people have different emotions. We are all made differently and we need to understand that each person is different and we need to, as supporters, when we have a support group, we are putting ourselves in each other's shoes. We are, people call us, they say, you're a counselor. No, I'm not a counselor. I'm not a medical person. I'm not this. I'm not a social worker. Then who are you? I'm nothing. I'm a mere supporter. I listen. The most important part, which is the most important part of the body? There is a story, a young boy, his mother keeps asking him from the time he is young, says, son, what is the most important part of the body? At that time he thinks maybe it's the eyes. So his mother says, no, my child, it's not the eyes. You can still have a life without sight. It's something else, keep thinking. And this sort of, he thinks it's a kind of a game. So as he grows older, every time the mother keeps asking him questions, which is the most important part of the body. And once when the child is about maybe 11 or 12 and his grandfather has passed away. So at that time, when everybody is weeping and crying and grieving, the mother turns to the child and they're taking the body away. And she says to him, son, which is the most important body part of the body? So he says, I looked up at my mother and I'm wondering, why is she asking me this question now? What does this question have to do? So the mother says, son, the shoulder is the most important part of the body, not because it holds your head up, but it holds the head of a person who is crying, one who is grieving. So I think that is what we are doing.
Amazing. And I think every patient goes through a psychological up and downs in terms of, psychological aspects during a treatment, right? I think there is a fraternity that has decided that this is how it is going to be. There's a denial, there's an acceptance, there's there is something else, and so on. Being a patient, what are those journeys and how different could it be from the theoretical aspects that are taught here?
The theoretical aspect, sometimes maybe some steps could be skipped. It doesn't have to go in a linear fashion. But I think almost all patients go through all these stages. Like, why me? What did I do wrong? I have not hurt anybody. How could this happen to me? All these kind of questions are there. No. Then begins the bargaining. You start, fighting with God. भगवान बहुत बुरा है, मुझे ही क्यों ऐसा दिया? Then, all kinds of, you did say very well, a roller coaster kind of a thing. And until it comes to an acceptance, that person is literally going through an emotional turmoil and an upheaval. Often, the first time I speak to patients, the first talk can carry on for hours. So then I usually wait. Suppose I receive a call, I say, wait, let us talk at a later time. And at a time when both of us have time, then we carry on the conversation, and the conversation can go on for about an hour or two. When they have literally sort of unburdened themselves. And even after that, there is the fear of relapse. Poonam was saying that she had it. It could happen any time. I've seen so many people in our group who have had relapses. One of a very close friend after about 18 years. So it can come back any time. So the fear, ab kya hoga? You can't live with that fear. You are in stage 4, you know that the person is not going to survive. The doctor, when I go to the doctor tells me that she's not going to live. I said, I know that she's not going to live. But the quality of life, that is important, and she's not dead yet. That's what I didn't say this to her, I said it to myself. I said, she still has a life to live. Nobody should die before, all of us are going to die. No one knows when that moment will come. What do you do? There is a young 23-year-old girl who is battling with breast cancer, and I talked to her, I asked her, I said, are you afraid? I can't even, open up the topic. That question still holds back a lot. In the group, how do you broach? Should you tell that somebody has passed away or not tell? Somebody who we have seen along with us, and one fine day is no more. And then someone asks, what happened to her? And then you can't tell at that stage कि वो नहीं है या वो चले गई या something. And we certainly owe something. We owe her a श्रद्धांजलि, we owe him a श्रद्धांजलि. बहुत ज़रूरी है ये. तो ये सब चीज़ें जो है वो बहुत मन में दुख करता है, दर्द करता है. काफ़ी बार मतलब as a support group also we cannot take on the role of a counselor or a psychological counselor. You need a specialist for that.
Yes.
We are learning as we go by, but
absolutely,
it's amateur. It's not.
Absolutely. I completely take your word for it. And I think more importantly, how about if you think from a different perspective, say if the support groups are armed with the psychological training, how big a difference would that make? Because everything that happens in the doctor's world and the psycho-oncologist world happens within the framework of the hospital, right? So they have to play within a boundary. We play with the boundary. How far can we go near them to solve the problem? And I think this difference is huge, right? In terms of we can go to their house, we can talk to them, we have family access, we have access at so many different levels. How about if we kind of really make use of that and, and this course?
Yes, I mean, our support group is very fortunate in that respect because we hold our monthly support group meetings at IPH, and there are times when Dr. Sukhada, Dr. Anand Nadkarni, they have also addressed us, or if anybody wants further support, then they can approach the psychologists at IPH. And we also have a volunteer with us who is a psychologist. So we have nutritionists, psychologists, but then this, as I said, is a gap and definitely much needed. You don't know when you will need it,
exactly.
But you feel the need for it, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupte. Now moving on to Smita Mehta. So she's a child and a marriage counselor, as all of us know, and she's also a mother to two amazing kids. At one point in time, so it's a difference between when one of the family members, like your father or mother, is diagnosed with cancer, versus your spouse being diagnosed with cancer. So I'm sure, how as a family do you guys go through this together, being two young kids, this challenge of a husband going through cancer, and your father at some point being diagnosed and now kind of recovering from it? How are the dynamics in the house, and how is the child and their reactions, and how did you all bring it together?
Hello everyone. See, my journey with cancer started in 2019 when my father was first diagnosed with colon cancer. It was the first time in my family, so as everyone said, we all went into a shock, and first was denial. How come a fit and lean man every day doing yoga and going for a walk, though he was 72 that. And it was like so shocking, and ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है? And after the denial stage, automatic acceptance, and with the treatments, then he got back to his routine. And by the time he is getting back to routine, my husband in 2020, he got diagnosed with colorectal cancer. And this time, see, though the acceptance, because he had seen a survivor, my father, going through this phase, it was easy for us to accept. But for my husband, he was 48, lots of responsibilities to be completed. And so the things were, emotional turmoil was more for him. But somewhere, we as a family, in both the sides, we decided, even when my father was undergoing and even during my husband's case, we decided as a family that we should not discuss much. जो आया है ना, उसको face करना है. So first thing is just accept it and go with the flow. Second is submit. Whatever the doctor says, just follow it. जो भी करना है वो डॉक्टर्स फिजिकल की काम करेंगे, जो भी सर्जरीज, रेडिएशंस, केमो. But we as a family, we should work on his mental health, because I really believe in, because half the things are taken care if mental health is good. And so what we decided कि चलो एक केमो, like जैसे बच्चा एक milestones when they achieve and we clap. Okay, we decided चलो now the chemos are, first chemo is over, come on, let's party, let's celebrate. And so a small party with asking the doctors, small thing we used to call friends, and what he liked, we used to just then play movies and watch something. And so the whole atmosphere was, we tried to keep it very lively. So as a routine, what he liked, both, my father, my husband, if he wanted to drive, both love driving. Karna hai kya? Otherwise what happens suddenly? No, he's a patient, don't go. So no bhai. He has to do all his routine. So he was not treated as a patient. Aana hai? Okay. Even when he used to come from radiations, many times he used to happen, मैं चलाऊँ क्या? Well, of course चलाऊँ. So he used to drive for his chemo, and then while coming I used to drive. So that was not कि अरे नहीं बीमार है, सो के रहना, ये करना, ये नहीं करना, वो नहीं करना. No भाई, सब कुछ करना है. Second chemo से he started his work. he started his all his meetings and everything. We तो घर में जो माहौल था ना, it was not like a बीमार patient, and basically I don't like sympathy and pity जो होता है ना, वो आदमी को ऊपर आने के लिए बहुत मुश्किल करता है. इसलिए I feel कि जो भी मेहमान या अपने इसमें ये भी एक ट्रेनिंग होना चाहिए कि when you go to meet a patient, I don't say like to say the word patient also, but उसको मिलने जाते हैं तो अरे अरे ये क्या हो गया, कैसे हो गया, और मैंने ऐसे सुना था, ये इसको भी ऐसे हो गया, वो तो मर गया, अरे ऐसे ये सब चीज़ें ऐसे क्यों बोलना है. So it happens. So I don't, pity and sympathy takes time for you to rise up. So it's always better that few positive friends you call, have a blast. ठीक है आया है, ठीक है, let's face it, we can just pass it on. So even during my father and during my husband, we both we used to plan trips. जाना है नहीं पता नहीं क्योंकि वो कोविड टाइम था तो नहीं, but we used to plan. We both, he is a wildlife enthusiast and he loves biking. We planned whole world, पूरा world देख लिया हम लोगों ने, पूरी हमारे itinerary ready है, पूरा ये सब planning करके रख दिया.
That is amazing, and I think yeah, so pity and sympathy are something that I think most patients would desist in you know, even in terms of, yeah, please, I think that's
I was laughing because I remember the first time when I had cancer, my husband's friend came and he brought some white flowers for me. And बड़ा वो gingerly उसने मुझे flowers पकड़ाए and he said कि मैम मैं तो आपके लिए white flowers लेके आया था, मैंने सोचा था कि आप बहुत you know you'll be very sad, पर आप तो बड़े अच्छे वाले से लग रहे हो. So I told him कि मैं मरी नहीं हूँ, अभी जिंदा हूँ यार, तुम लाल फूल भी ले आते तो that would have been fine. So like you said, you know, people, I mean, instead of just you know pushing you to feel better can make you feel like that. But also when you talk about you know going for holidays and things like that, when I had cancer, I had 3 weeks gap between my chemo and my radiation because it had to heal. So I took my doctor's permission. I had got a training program in Gangtok. So the day my chemo finished, the next day I was on the flight. I went to Gangtok without any hair on my head. I used to tie a scarf, making myself feel better कि मैं ठीक ठाक लग रही हूँ. I trained students there for 3 weeks. And then there was this some place that was at the height of 14,000 feet. They told me, don't go there. I asked my doctor. He says, if you think you can do it, please go ahead and do it. I went. I was fine. So I think, you know, that mental toughness, agar ek baar aa jati hai na, a lot of things can be resolved.
Beautiful. But mental toughness के बाद हम लोग को प्रॉब्लम होता है. स्मिता को बहुत प्रॉब्लम हुई थी अपने बच्चों को ग्रामर पढ़ाने में. So this is on a lighter note. हाँ, क्योंकि बच्चे पूछते थे कि माँ यहाँ पे कोलन आएगा या सेमी कोलन. So that used to be a problem there. But anyway, you know, I think you answered both the questions of, you know, together, which is amazing. And I think what conversations with your children would you have? I think that's very keen, being a child psychologist. How do they ask you?
Thank you, Neerad, for asking me this question basically, because kids, I feel, are the most ignored ones when it comes to a crisis in the family. Because generally we, it's not intentionally, we feel that उनको tension नहीं देना है, लेकिन it's vice versa. What we say, see what happens, the child is observing. Even a 6-year-old or 10-year-old, he is seeing his loved ones not coming home for many days. कुछ तो गड़बड़ है, और his parents और grandparents in stress, and आंखें बंद करके तो नहीं रहता ना बच्चा, वो देख रहा है. So what, something is wrong. And then when he is asking, he gets back the answers, अरे कुछ नहीं, वो आ जाएंगे, nothing wrong, he will come back. But then what happens many times, it backlashes. The child throws more tantrums and he troubles a lot, and everything goes for a toss. Parents are like कि अरे ये भी बच्चा भी सता रहा है, ये भी problems है. But vice versa. What we did, my parents, when my father had this, my brother's kids, my sisters, and all my kids, so we sat together in a meeting and then we discussed. See, kids, this is the issue, and now how you are going to take care of your granddad. दादा का किस तरह से ध्यान रखेंगे. Even during my husband's case, my son, we discussed And then we said कि okay अभी किस तरह से how you would what will be your responsibility, and you know it turned out to be wonders. क्योंकि बच्चा है ना इतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड नहीं होते, बहुत सिंपल रहते हैं. दे टेक इट द थिंग्स ओके व्हाट आई नीड टू डू आई विल डू इट. तो कोई क्या कर रहा है कि कोई दादा को ये गाने अच्छे लग रहे हैं तो चलो मैंने ये गाने बजा दिए. सो दादा स्कूल से आने के बाद टॉकिंग ऑल जिब्रिश, स्कूल से ये हुआ वो हुआ. सी देयर इज अ बर्न आउट विद द फैमिली मेम्बर्स, विद द वाइफ, विद द अदर किड्स मीन्स एल्डरली. उनको सबके वो एक बर्नआउट का फेस जो है ना, बच्चे जब पार्टिसिपेट कर देते ना उनको, तो वो सब थोड़ा फ्री हो जाते, थोड़ा मेंटली रिलैक्स हो जाते. एंड ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स तो उनके लिए ग्रैंड सन ग्रैंड चिल्ड्रन तो आर लाइक कि ओके वो आते हैं तो वो लोग खुशी हो जाते हैं. So the whole atmosphere. So I feel in crisis, if we discuss the problems with the kids now, they are a real asset to the family. So do take their help. It really helps. This is my opinion.
Absolutely, and that's amazing. And you know, this is so amazing. So I remember one of the times in terms of not exactly with kids, but even with caregivers. I think there are certain, you know, just the funny things that happen during transplants and kind of stuff like that. So I was in the transplant unit, you know, and my wife was my caregiver. So she was asking the doctor, said, you know, so how do I take care of him? So she says, you know, the medical team is already there to take care of him. So, you know. So then she said, what do I do? So she said, entertain him. And then she looked at me, she said, how do I entertain you? I said, belly dancing. You know, if that's the only skill, you know, maybe, you know, I would like to see some belly dancing in the BMT unit. But I think somehow humor is a very missing element in conversations across board. And I think we are very serious when it comes to the, you know, to these conversations. You know, and that brings me to our Yuvraj Singh of our, you know, fraternity, Supriya. So we call her the Yuvraj Singh, where she is constantly hitting sixes after sixes. So Supriya, I think, you know, we've had this, and we also saw in the panel in the morning where the doctor was saying that the patients don't share everything, you know. But we've seen when we sit across, you know, in a support group or with peer-to-peer or a patient-to-patient conversation, they just seem to open up, you know. So this one of the questions that I really want to ask you is, one is, you know, you also have a person in the family who's kind of going through something. So one is, how is the change in relationship after diagnosing, you know, between a spouse and, you know, so in that relationship. And second, do people ever come and ask you difficult questions? Like say, you know, how is my relationship going to be? Or say physical intimacy, or will I have children or not, and stuff like that, in a support group vis-a-vis a doctor. So if you can just share.
So a little background is that I had a typical Indian arranged marriage, and within 15 days of our marriage, my husband was diagnosed with leukemia. So again, as psychology would have it, all the line of stuff, with denial, anger, and so Neerad, you asked, you know, what is the first question that normally people have when somebody is diagnosed? And my first question to the doctor was, how much time does he have? Because it was just 15 days that I had known him, and I wanted to know him more. And today he's there 15 years with me. So I still have a lot to discover in him. So when you asked me about relationships, yes, relationships do change. Because I think from a partner, you suddenly become the mother, you suddenly become the caregiver. And I think that is something that I learned from day one. And Neerad, here I would like to say that when we are talking about a little formal education in counseling or psychology is important. Because I would really thank to the little course that I did in counseling and psychotherapy who came to my rescue. Because day one, when the doctor told me on my face that he has something like this, the doctor also was kind enough to ask me if I needed a lawyer because he thought I'm going to divorce. So the first thing we decided was we will not play victim. Because that's the first thing that happens. Oh, bechara, usko ye ho gaya. So don't let either the patient or the family feel victimized. And that is something I think the whole society needs to understand. Changes in relationship, definitely, because there's still so much of stigma attached to this that people want to hide about it. And same happened with my family, where my in-laws were not comfortable about telling anybody about his condition. So he started feeling that there was something that he had done wrong, and that is why he had to keep away from people. So let's not do that, right? We are not victims. We've not done anything wrong. So let's not be, I wouldn't say proud, but let's go out there and say that, yes, I am a cancer survivor, right? Now, second, what you said is that the support group that we have, where kids aging 25, 26, who are still fighting with their treatments and stuff, they do ask us. We run a matrimonial specifically only for survivors. Now, we are not limited to cancer anymore. We've got HIVs, we've got thalassemia, we've got disability, we've got blind people, and everybody. Anybody who wants to get married is not finding, but the asterisks and terms and conditions is that you have some underlying condition which prevents you from getting married, and the society is not accepting, please come to us. And the kids said that our friends ask us, do you think you really can get married? Why not? Why not? Today I am standing tall, despite fighting cancer twice maybe. I am in an IT job earning more than lakh of rupees a month. I own my own house, and Supriya, nobody gets married to me. Why? Is the question that we as part of the society need to ask. Why do we not have an equal chance for them? You know, there was a doctor who said that, you know, patients don't come and talk to us about how their life is. My question to the doctors is, do they really have time? They don't. The kind of ratio that we really have to specialized doctors and the amount of patients that we are having on a daily basis, they are really pressed for time. In that room, you have the interns standing, you have the nurses standing. Would a child open up and talk about intimate relationships? No. It is very difficult. So that is probably where, Neerad, we as support groups, we as counselors, psychologists should come forward, because behind those closed doors where they do not feel judged, because each one of us is someone who's gone through that whole process. Then they open out. Then they ask these questions, you know, that can I really have a relationship? Do I have a future, is their question. And I think, yes, everybody does have the right to have a bright future. So, Neerad, I think it is time that, you know, what these people are doing, this psycho-oncology is going to be the breakthrough, where we would have trained psychologists amongst our support groups. Correct. Which will help us in that same direction, right? And along with that formal, a little bit of formal education supporting us is going to bring the change.
Absolutely. Well said, Supriya, and thank you so much for sharing, you know, not only your journey, but also what you do. I think one of the very important facts also, I think that we forget, is the role of society in this process. I think the role of society is very undermined when we really look at, you know, how society plays a role for it. I'll just give you a small example of you know, how it happened with me. When I was in the BMT unit, and I was very, very critical, okay? I was very critical. The doctors had given 48 hours to see whether I would make it or not and stuff like that. And I remember my wife reaching out to a few of her friends, and some of them are farmers, organic farmers with whom I used to work. And one incident that still, even if I think I get goosebumps, is that, you know, she got a call from, you know, one of the organic farmers, and she said, "Are Neerad bhai, you know, how's his health? What's happening with him?" And stuff like that. And my wife started crying there. She said, "No, he's ill. We don't know. It's about 48 hours, and we are all unsure about what will happen." And then the next day, this farmer calls. And this, you know, so he speaks in Gujarati. He says, "Ben, you know, Neerad bhai will be fine." Why? He says the whole village got together. 200 people, we went to the temple and did 11 times Hanuman Chalisa. Nothing wrong will happen. The role of prayers, getting together, people kind of really praying for you, it does have its own, role that is very undermined. Somehow we feel that everything hidden from the society is good because you'll only get bad vibes. Everybody wants you to be happy. So I think that's really something that we owe back to the society when the society is praying for all of us. Yeah? So I think one question on the Aatman matrimonial that you run, Supriya, is how does the society view at relationships of these people? Like one is just family of the patients, right? Society's view after you are treating with cancer to be able to find a partner. So just, I want to understand, we have a crunch of time. What is
really
the society
difficult.
view? Yeah?
Because a lot of matrimonial, very, very famous matrimonial sites have advised these kids to hide their medical condition on their profiles so that they get the best of profiles. And they said once the marriage is fixed, you can probably just tell them this is what the society is advising. So I think your question is answered, Neerad, what the society looks at, right? But yes, we need to create a lot of awareness.
Sure, absolutely. And really, thank you so much. I think moving on to Kiranji now. He's a financial consultant and he helps people make money. But we all know that in cancer we lose money. So how does one really plan their finances as far as cancer is concerned? And secondly, what is the burden of cancer for the economy or for an individual patient? And what are your advices to really plan your life well, at least financially, so that you are covered?
Thank you, Neerad, for this question. It's a broad question, and in the perspective of financial planning, nobody plans to be a sick and then to manage the funds. But normally, in general, we tell people that please keep your money safe and don't use every money which you earn today. That money will help you in taking care of either your future or your kids' future or medical requirements. So fundamentally, when it comes to typically, when it comes to India, there are two different things which are happening. One is financial planning means people want to be rich in a day or two. Okay. They want to do the speculations because they are earning good. So money is coming in, and still they want, this is my hard-earned money, and I want to grow this money very fast. Okay. But when you talk about protections, then they say, why protections? I want to grow money. Why you are asking me to pay premiums or pay this money for well-being? I'm healthy now, so I don't need. But as we see, and from morning we are seeing the sessions, we are finding many different cases of illnesses, not only cancer, all other, and now there is no age bar. So lot of financial disturbances we find during such kind of situations in the family. So it is always better to be very specifically managing the money, and you should have protections in place from day one. So when you are sitting in the flight, if somebody tells you that there is no parachute for you, will you will you take the ticket? You will not. But when we talk about, people are saying, but this is very costly. Why to pay 5,000 rupees and that money is not going to help me if I don't die or if I don't feel sick? So this is not, this is not the premium. We have to understand that this is the donation for those who really need it. And those who, if you don't need it, you are blessed. But actually that is not understood by Indian society, and unfortunately insurances are not actually penetrated the way they are supposed to be. So this always creates a big trouble in all good families. I have seen very wealthy families, they don't manage the money well, they don't have protections properly managed, they're all businesses are on toss, so it is very difficult situation for the family. So it is always better to have protections के लिए कुछ पैसा बाजू में रखना है, मीन्स रखना है. You should not ask question and how it will give me money back. So that is what people normally think. So when I buy a car, I pay for 6 bags, which I really never use it unless I make a big accidents. But normally I pay for 1 bag 1,50,000. But we don't think in that way, and for that depreciating asset I always pay the premium because it is mandatory in India. Medical insurances are not mandatory in India, so that is always taken for granted, and then that happens. So people don't have adequate insurances, and it is nowadays it is very costly, very costly. I mean, all the doctors are here today and running hospitals and the setups. It's very tough job for them. We think that they charge huge, but it is not like the right thing. So we have to understand it is a cost to give the services, and for that you have a choice, but you are not utilizing it. So that is what I feel.
Fantastic, and really thank you so much. I think one thing I would like to share on behalf of the entire group, if I may, is really thank the doctors for the kind of work that they're doing in this space. Very few people have seen the vulnerability of doctors closely as all of us would have. When a patient is no more, we have seen tears in the eyes of doctors. The nurses want to hide their faces. The young residents don't want to come to work. They are angry of losing every single patient. It's not an easy job. And really from the bottom of our hearts, I think we are extremely grateful for all the doctors and all the people who work in this in the medical space. Especially there are some psycho-oncologists who work with pediatric patients, and I know it's a tough work to get into even a pediatric ward and watch a 7-month baby going through a transplant, or a 9-month baby having chemotherapy, or a 3-year-old having pain. It is one of the toughest jobs. So really expressing gratitude, I think, on behalf of all of us to the entire group. And just on a closing note, I think one line from each one of us. What is the message that we would like to share in this forum of psycho-oncology for everyone?
The one message that I would like to share is, it can't be one. Can I? Okay, I'll. Build humor in your life. Don't die before you die. And live in the present moment. आगे का आगे देखा जाएगा.
I don't think I would say anything else because you've said it all so well. Thank you.
Yeah, I think all I want to say is that, if you build a strong mind, your problems are not going to go away, but they will definitely help you deal with it better. And also, let's not forget that when you are going through the problem, your entire family is also going through the probably the worst experience of their life. So keeping your spirits up will help them also to keep spirits up. And I second Kiran's opinion. When my husband got his medical, I'll just take half a minute here. I remember it was the first personal insurance that we took, and it was in the month of August. And so his secretary insisted कि आप ले लो, company नहीं भी दे रही है, please buy it. So we got ourselves insured, and then came 20th of August 2009, and he said, sir, it's come up for renewal. And my husband said, यार तूने पैसे बर्बाद करवा दिए, कुछ हुआ तो है नहीं. So he said, sir, शुक्र मनाओ, आपको वो पैसे, you didn't have to do anything. It's okay, just pay the premium. That was 20th of August, and 30th of August, I was in hospital with cancer. So I completely agree with you. Cancer is a very expensive disease to deal with. So you need to invest in that, medical health insurance or whatever you may call it.
I will take a minute. Here, there are two different insurances in India. One is life and one is non-life. The medical insurances fall under non-life, and all medical insurances will insure you when you are hospitalized. Okay? But in cancer patients, we have seen that normally they go to hospitals for what? For chemo or for radiation. Most of the treatment happens at home, and whole family members are working around that patient for at least a complete treatment. It may last in a month, it may last for another few years. And if the patient is a breadwinner, that earning stops. In that situation, Life Insurance Corporation of India brought a very nice product long back. When my brother died at age 36 in 2005, this product was not there. But now we have a choice to pay even a cup of tea cost to get a good cancer cover policy where they don't ask you questions. In medical insurances, you know, they will ask you for bills, they will ask you for n number of documentation. Here, if I got diagnosed with cancer, if it is stage 2 and above, if I am insured for 25 lakh of rupees, they will lump sum pay to my account. They will not ask you where you are doing the expenses. That is the best part of it. And not only that, after that, they will give you 25,000 rupees a month for next 10 years to survive that family. It is a big thing, but we don't know, because once I go to a family and ask about, I start telling about cancer, he says, why are you here? We don't have cancer. You don't have cancer, but there are n number of possibilities. Invest 10 rupees a day, but people don't do. So my advice is, please plan your finances accordingly. Thank you.
A few years back, it was said cancer has no answer, but today I would like to say cancer has many answers, and so many fields, so many areas we all are working together. So I definitely feel the fear factor and awareness. We all, if we work together, it will definitely, we will put a mark and remove the fear factor from people. So, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and that reminds me of this quote, when you become fearless, you become limitless. And I think, just to end with that, I think it's time that I think all of us work together, from the patient group, psycho-oncology group, the entire doctors group, for empirical evidence-based interventions. I think now what even some of the support groups are doing is not structured. The right intervention, we don't know if it's at the right time, at the right modality, with the right problem. So I think it's time that everybody works together and really just provides empirical research-based evidence for interventions that are timely. And please make use of support groups, because they're here selflessly to ensure that the patient is taken care of. Yeah, that's it, and I'd like to hand it over back to the... Thank you.